Thank you. Friends, family, fellow graduates, faculty, and staff, I am deeply honored by the opportunity to share my thoughts with you today. I've always loved school. I love learning, exploring, and redefining myself, finding a name for something I have always known in books and in ideas. I love the exchange of experience and thought, and the jolt of accidentally brushing against someone else's mind in class, getting a glimpse of the alien architecture of another person's brain. I have loved education in spite of the abuses I and many others encountered in its name. I have loved it in spite of the imposition of an oftentimes narrow and brittle curriculum. Though much of the energy and resources of my schools were devoted to controlling the student body, to training us to be compliant and obedient members of society, even then I sensed the transformative potential in education. When I entered college, I became acutely aware of the gaps in my education. While I had lived with the understanding that my school was not a good school, this was my first confrontation with the consequences of educational inequity. The most damaging void in my education was the lack of critical reflection. I had never been expected to question the absolute truth handed down to me by teachers and textbooks, certainly not by politicians and the press. I have spent the last 11 years trying to correct this. 2 years ago, I came to Teachers College looking for answers. Having experienced the consequences of inequity and of conformist education firsthand as a student, then later as a teacher in the Marshall Islands, I knew that I was unprepared to tackle any of these issues in a systematic way. I hoped that graduate school would teach me how to educate in a better way than what I had experienced, and that it would point me to the theories, the case studies, the answers I needed to get in there and start solving problems. Fortunately, I did not find any easy answers in any book or classroom at TC. Instead, I found authors, colleagues, and professors who challenged my assumptions and encouraged me to question my presence and my presumption in every space. In order to engage authentically with the task of transforming the system, I had to deconstruct my own understandings of education and power, knowledge and teaching. I needed to consider my position and my relationship to authority within the classroom, the system, and the community. And most importantly, I needed to do this constantly. Inevitably, we will each enter spaces that are shaped by inequity, whether they be institutions of privilege or those that serve the marginalized. As we prepare to inhabit the roles of leaders, educators, and practitioners, I hope that we continue to position ourselves as learners. I hope that we enter the communities, schools, and organizations with humility and a willingness to question not only the structures, practices, and cultures that perpetuate inequity, but to question our own roles in supporting, ignoring, or dismantling them. I hope that we appreciate the enormous responsibility that accompanies the role of educator. We frequently emphasize the power of education to liberate, to enrich, to illuminate, and I am deeply committed to bearing this out in my own work. But we must also recognize the darker power of education, the power to alienate, to shudder, to engender intolerance or apathy. We must ensure that the phrases critical thinking and social justice become more than hollow banners. They should be evident in our relationships with the classrooms, the communities, and the organizations we enter, but they should also be carved into every aspect of the way that we live. As graduates of Teachers College, an institution with a social justice mission, indeed as human beings, we have a profound responsibility to cultivate a culture of inquiry and critical consciousness in our work and in our lives. Let us embody the transformative power of education in our constant evolution as individuals and as professionals. As we grow in our capacity to question, to see clearly, and to care for each other, we begin to fulfill the promise of education that drew us to this institution. Thank you, and congratulations.